when it comes to when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have to 100% measure your progress for many different reasons, right? And this is whether you're building your own whether you're a solopreneur, which I think is the weirdest word in business, solopreneur. Solopreneur is so weird. You're an entrepreneur who works by yourself. Okay. Now, if you're a solopreneur or you're an entrepreneur who works by themselves, if you build a team, if you're building a firm, an agency, a company, a business, right? If you're a true business owner who builds a system, regardless of whether it is, it's still very important, right? One, obviously, in order to measure your goals and your progress, you need to obviously have established very clear goals and targets. All right. I think so often we say the little small things like, oh yeah, I just want to make as much money as possible, or I want to become financially independent, or I want to help as many families as I can this year. Or, yeah, I just really want to be an entrepreneur and really just run my own business and not have to work for anybody ever again. Right? Like those, that's not enough. And I trust me, I tell my team all the time, yeah, that's not enough. You need very specific, like measurable pieces. And we can say SMART goals all day we want. Yeah, that's cool. That's fine. But I'm like, probably the most important is specific and measurable of the whole SMART. Why? Because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't know where you're walking to. I can put a blindfold on you and tell you to go, and I promise you'll go somewhere. You'll make some kind of progress. Right? Let's say you're walking in the opposite direction of what you should. Well, guess what? Your legs are going to get stronger because you at least walking somewhere. Your legs are going to get stronger. You might not have better progress. You might not be close to success, but at least your legs are going to get stronger. Is that what you want? No. Your legs are going to get stronger regardless of whether you walk in the right direction or wrong direction. Right? You are going to build yourself as a business owner, as a business leader, as a financial guru, as an entrepreneur. You're going to build yourself regardless of which way you go. Hopefully you take the blindfold off and walk towards success. Right? And there's too many people that don't outline where they're going. If you went to to one of those people who creates homes, I can't even think. If you went to what is the word? What's the word? God, what? Hold on, I'm looking it up. What is it called when? What is the profession that creates, that maps, that like creates houses? Builders? No, that designs houses. Maybe that's the word I should. Why is this so hard for me right now? Architect. Contractor. Okay, if you went to a contractor and said, hey, make me a house, and I just want it to be pretty big, dig it. That's not going to do them any justice, and it's not going to get you a house that you want. And then whenever they build a random big house, you're going to be upset because you had no direction. You gave no direction. You didn't know what you wanted at all, and you're likely going to be upset. There's a small chance that you actually might love it, but most often, you just spent all this money. You just went through this entire journey of waiting for the time and all the rest of that stuff to get what it is that you wanted. And at the end of it, you didn't get what you wanted, but now you have to settle because you don't want to go back through that entire process. That's the same thing with entrepreneurship. That's the same thing with your financial journey. If you don't know exactly where you're going to go, most likely you're not going to get what you wanted. You're not going to be satisfied, but you're going to have to settle. because you just went through all that and you don't want to go. Or for those fixed-minded individuals who they try to step out of their comfort zone a little bit and have some growth and some development to even go for something that's a little bit more challenging. If they get there and it's not what they wanted, a lot of times they revert. They go straight back. All right. And so that's just because they did not establish those very clear and specific goals. Now, I think with that, with making those specific and measurable goals, you have the ability to look at a roadmap right in front of you. And while looking at that roadmap that's right in front of you, you're able to actually make little changes on the road that is in front of you, which is cool, right? You can be going to the same exact destination that you want, but you can actually change the type of path that's on there. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, that path is going to have a whole lot of twists, turns, ups, downs, hills, mountains, and everything else, other things to derail you. I'm not saying it's going to be easy at all, but you need to know exactly where you're going and understand that you have the ability to change. Sometimes that path that's laid out in front of you. Sometimes, not all the time. All right. Next piece, you need to monitor very key performance metrics. So, what is a performance metric? In business and entrepreneurship and your development of finances, you need to have certain little milestones that you can be able to predict, or like it's kind of like make a hypothesis. I don't know many people even. I was not the best at science. I was pretty good because to me science is like a lot of math. All right, and I love math, but it's like a hypothesis. If you can ask a question, right? If this, then this, or yeah, I think that's if then or whatever. If whatever it is, I don't know science like that. But when I ask a question, and that's really the way I like to do it, right? You can set a goal, you can set a milestone, right? Let's go back to the house. Let's say that your architect, your contractor says that the house is going to take a year to build. Well, year, whatever. You can actually set up quarterly performance metrics to track the progress, as you should, because you want to make sure that things are kind of going according to plan as well, right? I think that's one huge thing that a lot of people miss on their tracking and their accounting, right? So for me, something that I'm consistently doing is setting up a goal for the next quarter, the next month, the next week, whatever the case is, but you ask it in a question, and that's going to be different. For instance, instead of by end of quarter two, my goal is to have earned $60,000 total for the year. Well, asking the question, what is it that I can do today that sets up for me earning $6,000 before the end of quarter two? And that gives you much more power and much more control, because now I'm able to answer that. That makes sense, right? Or even, why is my goal $60,000 by the end of quarter two? Right, that's another really powerful question. Why is my goal, or why am I able to? How will this be achieved? Ask yourself. It's just another tip, another tool for anything, for any kind of goals or any affirmations or really anything that you want to. Whenever you're talking to yourself, right? Ask it instead. Ask it to yourself, and then force yourself to answer it back. Self, right? Ask yourself. It's going to be much better for you. But with that, because you have those little stops along the way that you're able to track, the great part is that you're able to see where you might need some improvement, right? If that contractor is still building and working on a house, and you're actually tracking it and you're setting up those goal milestones and those performance metrics and things like that, you're able to stop and look at it, ask yourself the question, are we on track to be able to do this? Are we? Well, why are we, or why are we not? All right, don't just say, yes, we're on track. No, we're not on track. Why are we? Why are we not? And it allows you to start to identify areas of improvement while you are tracking those metrics. Now, a piece that I love, and I think this is probably like most business owners, entrepreneurs, people who are trying to build their finances, I think this is something that they absolutely hate. But I love it. You have to harness the power of data analysis. Data analysis is a skill that a lot of people neglect learning, but they need to. They absolutely have to. Data analysis. That is, not only is it just looking at your business numbers, your business ratios, not only is it looking at your financial progress, not only is whatever the case is, it's looking at it and understanding in your brain how to analyze it for the future, for now, like for the past. Is actually fully understanding it, which I think is so cool. It gives you lots of different like insights to so many little pieces. It can answer so many questions. I mean, really, data analysis is just being able to answer or do the study work that you need to do for that hypothesis that we talked about, that question that you ask yourself. And then now you get to study. I love it. I love it. I think that the reason why most people don't prefer to do the data analysis portion of their business, or let's say, for instance, you're working towards financial independence, right? And let's say that you've worked with someone, shameless plug, like me, who's going to work with you on, helping you reduce your debt and building up your emergency funds, right? And like your income is allocated into places where they probably should. So let's say that that's happening. A lot of times you don't see the results that you want immediately. And so because you don't physically see and feel the results that you want immediately, it derails your motivation. But if you can actually check and look at the data, which once again, if you work with me, I'll be able to show you the data. But if you yourself are tracking that data, it's going to be very different, because then you're actually looking and understanding the progress. Right, what you're doing differently now versus in the past, how your finances have changed. Right, you're able to see the fact that you're building up an emergency fund. It might be little by little, right, and you're also paying off debt. Instead of paying maybe $500 of interest this last month, maybe you only actually paid $400. Right, but the thing is, being able to see the little hidden things that you cannot see just by looking at a number on a screen, or a number on your phone, or hearing the number in your accounts, or whatever the case is, you don't necessarily feel that. Here's another example. My mom. And I love my mom. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for giving me the brain and the body that I have. Okay, so I don't know also why I just set that up like I was about to say something negative. I love you, Mom. Anyway, so for her, she's on a journey to being able to lose weight and get in better shape and become a little bit more toned. And so I think her first 30 to 45 days, or 2 months, I think actually, she's been working with a fitness trainer in the gym. Now at first she was kind of seeing a lot of the water weight come off and things like that. And she was eating as healthy as she could, drinking the stuff and like eating more small meals and doing things like that. She dramatically changed. And it got to a point where she was actually feeling really good, like where she was like not hungry to eat as much, right? She was eating more often, but smaller portions. And then she was doing that so consistently that really her metabolism started to speed up a little bit more and her stomach started to shrink. However, she was also in the gym doing a little bit of strength training. Excuse me. Now, after a couple months, she and her trainer decided to do an assessment. All right, and this is where we're tracking those milestones, those performance metrics. Now, on that assessment, my mom noticed that she gained about 7 pounds. I think it was about 7 pounds. She gained about 7 pounds. So she was extremely discouraged the entire, they did the metrics performance analysis at the beginning of the training session, and then they went and trained. And then by the end of it, the trainer pulled the data and all the numbers and everything else. my mom had been feeling extremely discouraged she said the entire time. She just could not get out of her mind how much work she had been doing and how much time she had been putting in, and how hard she'd been doing on focusing, just trying to eat and drink healthily and trying to consistently come to the gym, right? All the work that we normally put in to whatever change we're trying to do, right? If that's trying to build your business, if that's trying to become much more financially independent or financially stable or literate, all of those struggles that she did, she's like, there's no point. Like I'm gaining weight. Like I've seen it lose, but now I'm gaining weight. But the difference this time though was that whenever her trainer pulled those results, the trainer looks and she's like, "Yep, this is awesome. This is really awesome stuff." And mom's like, "How? I'm gaining weight." And the trainer says, "Well, look, let's look at the actual analysis. Like let's look at the actual data, and then I'm going to break down what this data actually means." Just to come to find out that she had been building up muscle, replacing fat. Building muscle, replacing fat. A number on the screen, a number on the scale is not going to tell you that. She had been turning fat and directly into muscle, toning up a little bit more, which is awesome. That's the healthy way to do it. Lost a whole lot of water weight, but then start to build up good muscle for yourself to be a little bit more healthier. Muscle also weighs more than fat. And on top of that, some of the other metrics of her body was also different as well. But a number on a scale is not going to tell you that. Yeah, you do want to track it. You need to know what those numbers are every now and again, right? You need to see with your contractor who's building your house, you need to make sure you're checking upon the progress the entire way through. But just what you see, what you hear, what you feel isn't enough. You actually need to dive deep into the data. And diving deep into the data and understanding it is one huge mistake that I see with a ton of business owners, with a ton of people who are trying to build up their goals and track their goals and trying to get to a different place. A lot of times that's it, because they're terrified of what the true results might actually tell them. They're terrified about what the true results might actually tell them about their business. Yeah. Terrified. So make sure that you're actually like falling in love with data analysis and actually looking into those little pieces. There's so many different little opportunities that you have within data analysis. All right. Another reason, and this is something for yourself, and then this is also something for your teams that you build as you're building teams. You need to celebrate your own milestones for you, for yourself, for your team, and also those numbers and how you're tracking and progressing and counting and measuring will ultimately motivate your team. The cool thing is it can really boost morale, but also boost accountability. I think that's one huge piece for me. So something easy, right? If it can be measured, it can be counted, right? Excuse me. If it can be measured, it should be counted. I can measure the amount of books that I read. Right? Or excuse me, I can measure my development based on the amount of books that I read. There we go. So that means I need to count the amount of books that I read. And a goal of mine was to read 25 books this year. Now that's a huge goal for me, because before I started reading books back in November, December, I probably have not read a novel or a book since 8th grade. I'll be honest, like since 8th grade. And so I finally started reading, and I decided, well, I feel I can feel myself developing from these books that I'm reading. So I need to measure it. I need to measure my development based on the amount of books that I read. And so that's why I set a goal to read 25 books, right? I think if I can set a random goal of 25 books and count it and track it and count where I was at the beginning of the year, measure where I was at the beginning of the year versus the end, next year I'll be able to then say, okay, make some adjustments, right? And continue to improve myself. So cool thing is, at this point, I'm on book number 10, and we just started the second quarter of the year. right? So I'm ahead of track for my goal for this year, which is, first off, awesome, right? I'm going to congratulate myself and celebrate that as well. Once I finish this book, that'll be book number 10, which I think is a huge milestone. That's probably the most books I've ever read in my life, all combined at any point in time. So that's really awesome. But then the second piece is I'm really able to motivate and inspire myself to continue doing this development that I'm doing. And on top of that, I've inspired a lot of the people in my business and my team that I've built and my company that I've built to also track their development based on books and reading. I mean, like, I was also motivated by someone that I brought into my business and my team. He motivated me to also want to read. Did I start reading immediately? No, it took actually somebody else completely outside, somebody else that I learned from for a good little bit for me to start really reading. But it really allowed me to buckle down, set up a goal, track my progress. And it's cool because, like, there's this book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I've talked about it here on the channel a lot, but in the book, there's a quote, there's a piece that says, your income only grows to the extent that you do. Your income only grows to the extent that you do. So here's one cool thing is that if I do end up reading 25 books this year, I fully attribute my income to the amount of books that I read, and also to the amount of development that I do and that I get from those books. So if I read 25 books this year, and let's say I read 25 books this year and I make $150,000, well, I expect that if I read 50 books next year, my income will be $300,000. That's what I expect. Right? Because your income only grows to the extent that you do. And I can then track that. And also I can celebrate each milestone, right? If I'm setting that up, I'm celebrating the fact that I read 25 books. That is amazing. And I can now motivate and inspire other people, not just saying, hey, I read 25 books this year. You should go and read 25 books as well. No, I've attached it to some metric that was able to be measured. There's no point in counting something that is not able to be measured. There's no point in doing it. Why would I count books if I'm not measuring anything? But I'm measuring my development. I'm measuring my income based on the amount of books that I read. Based on the amount of books that I read. And because of that, then I can go and say, hey, friend, like, I've really been developing my personal finance. And I've really noticed that whenever I read these sorts and styles of books, and coupled with like going to these different types of networking events with other individuals who are developing themselves financially, like if I go to one event a month and read 2 books a month, like it dramatically increased my financial situation from here to here, right? I paid off over $50,000 worth of debt and also saved to my retirement plan, over $30,000 this year. And I'm expecting that if I double that up next year, I will be able to do more than double that, paying off debt and increasing my retirement account, right? Like that right there will then motivate and inspire you yourself as someone who's building your financial independence. That will motivate your teams as you start to build a network of other individuals, as you start to build your business, as you start to become much more of an entrepreneur. That's why you need to track and count. That's honestly, I don't know, probably one of the biggest things, one of the biggest reasons. I really love that I put that in there, and I probably beat that to death. But coming up on the last few pieces that I have, I think that when it comes to holding yourself accountable, and again, it's Monday. So Mondays is a perfect day to talk about accountability. Why? Well, in our business, right? Mondays is where you can set up your goals for the week, right? That's where you can set up your goals. Look at what you've done this last week, or when the month starts on a Monday too, is even better because now you can look at the entire last month and plan the entire next month. So, well, whatever. Anyway, accountability is very important to be on Mondays. You can really set up your week for it. But because you're able to look back at what the last week was, you're able to start to adapt different types of strategies. And what I also listed here is embrace agility. Embrace agility. How agile are you with your goals, with your progress, with your tracking? How agile are you, and how persistent are you within your reaching out to others, within your learning? Let's say you're trying to save, let's say you set up a goal, or you save $1 every day, right? How consistent are you and be able to manipulate that? Maybe something happened this past weekend, you were not able to save on Saturday and Sunday. Are you able to manipulate that and change it, right? How persistent are you in making sure so you can do and track all of that stuff on a Monday? And when you embrace being able to manipulate things, change things, it allows you to really hold yourself much more accountable, right? Because you're taking things into your control instead of allowing the world to take control of whatever it is. Donut coffee time. Okay, now I want to say that again. You're able to take things into your control instead of the world controlling everything for you. If you are the one who has your control and you say, well, because of this, I'm going to do this. Things are not happening to you, they're just happening. And you have the ability, and you should embrace it. You have the ability to manipulate your life, your money, your business, your leadership path, your direction, your goal, your end goal, whatever it is, however you like to. And you should. I think it's huge. This is another piece that a lot of people in our industry say. We don't panic, we pivot. When something goes wrong, don't panic. Just pivot. Now, I like pivot because military, right? I got my time in the military. Bam, over there, here, there. I got my military stuff all around, right? But that's one thing I do love. We don't panic, we pivot. Just turn around. Just turn into a different direction or pivot to a different path, right? And that's okay. Sometimes you can't pivot at all. You just got to jump straight over the hill or climb it and struggle and sweat. And you're exhausted at the end of that hill. But guess what? At least you got over it, right? But you don't panic, you just pivot. Sometimes things don't go the way that you plan, and that's okay. Embrace that. Next, you have to always speak about accountability and be very transparent. So many people hate actually being transparent with themselves as they're trying to develop. Here's an example. Have you ever wanted to hope and pray that you can start saving more money and spend less, so you just stop looking at your bank account? Just stop looking at your bank account. People do it all the time. Why? It's because they don't want that transparency. That, no, yeah, you're sucking. Yeah, you're not doing too hot. You know that you've been going to Walmart a little bit too much, right? If you intentionally saved a couple of extra $100, right? You intentionally saved a couple extra $100 from your budget, and then you're like, you know what? I can go to Walmart, grab me an extra bag of chips. Oh, I'm there. Let me also grab a nice 2-liter and a bottle of wine. I don't know, right? Because you got the extra money that's there. Well, you're not really fostering an accountability culture within yourself. And just because of the fact that you're going to hide the cost, you're going to hide what your bank account is doing, you're not being transparent with yourself. And that's also why a lot of people don't do well. But that's why, for me, it's like, man, I'm going to be honest, it does suck a lot. It's kind of going back to what I was talking about, tracking your performance and your data, right? And analyzing it. Man, it really sucks to actually be fully transparent with yourself. It does. For instance, I mean, like this morning, just waking up to be able to start and get my day going and all the rest of this stuff. Right? Like, I have to be fully transparent with the fact that, like, did I do all that I could to prepare for my day today? Did I do all that I could? I mean, I could have went to sleep a little bit earlier. I could have prepped some things last night. I could have prepped some things for like the podcast, even though I did the podcast prep like days ago, right? But I could have done more probably. I could have done these certain things. And then not only could I have done this, How do I make sure I don't do that next time? And also, I need to make sure that I hold myself accountable to it the next time. Like I need to, it's like, for instance, at the end of the day, you can always be very transparent with yourself now, right? Like it's always easier in hindsight. But at the end of the day, take that hindsight perspective that you had and now hold yourself accountable and start for the next day. Do that. So when you have and you foster your own culture of accountability, you go much further because you can, again, take that responsibility and that ownership amongst yourself. I think that's a huge piece. And it really just like the last big thing about why accountability is so important to me with tracking and measuring and counting things is that you just obviously have to really commit to consistent growth and constant growth, right? I think constant and consistent growth is a huge piece, right? And that's just because when it comes to constant, and no matter which way, you should be growing in some aspect. A lot of times, a lot of people, they feel like there's only one way to really grow. Going back to the example, reading. What if you cannot physically read a book in this moment? Well, change it up and put in a podcast or put in some like Audible or something like that, like an audiobook, or whatever the case is, right? Because not all the time will you be able to do exactly what it is that your goal was, but you need to stay constant with your growth. And so sometimes you just got to figure out which other pieces to plug in whenever there will be gaps, because trust me, there'll be a lot of gaps. It's gonna be a lot of gaps. But if you make sure that you plug those little pieces in somewhere else, you'll fill in all the gaps and it'll be a nice constant timeline. Now, as far as consistency does not have to mean every single day, every single minute, every single hour. It doesn't have to be that. However, whatever you set yourself up for, your pattern, that pattern itself needs to stay consistent, right? For me, I don't take more than 2 days in between a book that I read, for instance. And that's a good constant pattern for me. I also read every morning, every single day for an hour. And that's consistent for me. Some people, they read every morning, every night. Some people brush their teeth every morning, every night. Some people, whatever the case is, your cadence at which you do it should be consistent. Or, I mean, it didn't have to be every day, right? So, I mean, you should brush your teeth every day. Brush your teeth every day, guys. I'm not saying that. I'm saying depending on whatever your goal is or your daily habit or your monthly habit, whatever it is, do that consistently, all right? So consistency is the cadence at which you do it, right? The frequency, how often, and then constance is are you constantly making sure that you're never having any holes, right? In your growth, always be growing, But yeah, brush your teeth every day, guys. Somebody's going to say, hey, Charming told me that I don't have to brush my teeth every day and I just need to be consistent and constant. No, that's not constant. There's a whole lot of holes in you're not brushing your teeth every day. But yeah, setting up clear goals, being able to track your performance metrics, being able to foster a good individual culture of accountability, embracing agility, embracing change. What else did I get? Oh, celebrating your milestones. Also, become very powerful in data analysis is all very important, but probably all the way at the top of everything. I encourage you guys to figure out what you can measure, what you can measure, and then count it. And if it's able to be counted, measure it. All right. I had an awesome time speaking today, and I definitely think that today's podcast. I know for sure that today's podcast is going to be very life-changing for you guys. But take everything I taught today, and talked about today, work on it. Take all those notes, rewatch it as well, and go and make this week awesome. You owe it to yourself.